Hey, welcome back to Real Housewives Recaps. Today I'm covering Ladies of London, Season 1, Episode 8. This is the finale episode of the first season, and I loved it. I love talking about it, and I will jump right into Season 2. So let's get into this. What'd you guys think? Did you love the season? Did you love this episode? Let's get into it. So, of course, we left off at that amazing dinner at Caroline's house. Noelle is whispering to Marissa, which was so funny because Noelle's so nervous and so drunk. And she just kind of feels caught in the middle between Caprice and Caroline. And Julie says, "Did you learn that in your etiquette class?" So this is where we see Caprice pull up. And we know the shit's going to hit the fan. It's going to be a big deal. And I'm so excited. So Caprice pulls up in her car. And Juliette says, Caprice arrives. It's like she wants the red carpet to just roll out for her. Everyone sound the horns. Caprice is here. So the shitty thing I think she did is she breezed right past Caroline. And just kind of says, thanks for having me. But hugs everyone else. And does that on purpose. Makes a big deal out of it. Caroline says, no matter what Caprice feelings for me, to enter someone's home and not acknowledge the host first is rude for anyone. Caroline says, I did arrange vegan food for you if you're hungry. So she went to all this trouble. She had her chef make this for her. She really made a big deal. And Caprice kind of pouts and doesn't push. I mean, she just kind of pushes around her plate. She barely eats it. Caprice to camera says, Caroline didn't stand up to acknowledge me. I don't know why she's doing this. She knows better. The ladies move over to this side area and they're talking. So we return to the Caprice show. She says, I'm just going to stay a little bit because she's had a really long day and she just got an email from the surrogate. So Caroline says, Caprice is being dramatic. If my surrogate was dilated, I wouldn't be here sat in England. I'd be by the hospital bed. All the women find excuses to excuse themselves. And Caroline says, there seems to be a giant elephant in the room. There seems to be an issue on your side. And Caroline says, my issue is the baby shower. You asked me to host it. And Caprice cuts her off and says, I didn't ask you to host. This is so interesting because the same thing comes up later with Marissa. I don't mean to jump ahead, but damn, we find out the truth and it makes me just totally believe Caroline here. What did you think? Did you have a side? Who did you think was right and wrong here? So Caroline says she had organized a party planner, did everything beautiful for you, and was told it was not good enough. Caprice says, that's not fair. I never said it wasn't good enough. There's something that was brought to my attention today that really hurt my feelings. So she's deflecting. She's changing the subject. She says Marissa and Nicole were very gracious and offered to throw me a baby shower. And evidently you borderline bullied, saying, why are you doing this for her? This is where that word bully comes up. We'll see that into play later. Woo, okay. Caroline says, how dare she say I bullied these girls? She wasn't even there. Caprice says, it's a mean thing to do, Caroline. And Caroline says, you asked Matt and Marissa to host a baby shower. Caprice says, no, they offered. Ooh, okay, so this comes up later, and I can't wait to discuss this when Marissa jumps in. Caroline saying, I have the text I will show you. And Caprice says, why don't we ask Marissa? And I wish that's what had happened. I don't agree with Caroline. She kept on about these texts, but she should have just gone and got Marissa because it turns out Marissa says the same thing that Caroline does. Ooh, I can't wait to talk about it. So Caroline goes to get it. They read the text. It's kind of vague. And, it does sound like she was asking for a baby shower in my opinion, but I didn't think the texts were completely clear. So then Caprice supposedly goes to leave, but she says to Marissa, I have a gift for you. It's in my car. And Caroline rightly points out, I've never in my life heard of a guest giving another guest a gift and not the host. That's pretty rude. She put on this huge dinner party for you, and you so did all that on purpose. So anyway, so they head out to the car. So Caroline and Juliette are talking about how Caprice lives in her own little bubble. So this is when Noelle walks up, and Caroline says, I just heard from Caprice that I bullied you. What is this bullying thing? Meanwhile, we see that Caprice is talking to Julie and Marissa. And Caprice says, you guys had offered to do this leaving party for me. Marissa says, I understand a little bit where she's coming from. I came out of nowhere and putting on this baby shower. And I thought it was pretty good of Marissa to say that, because it is pretty shitty, not on Marissa's part, but on Caprice's part, to ask somebody else to throw her this shower. So back at Caroline, she says, you can't play us off each other. And Noelle says, I didn't say that you were bullying. And Caroline says, that's what she said. Noelle says, I never called you a bully. I don't even use the word bully. And they go to a flashback, and I assume we're going to see Noelle saying bully, but she didn't. It was Caprice that used that word. And Noelle says she's miffed that she's taking the heat on this. Meanwhile, in my favorite part of the episode, Caprice says to Marissa, I'm gracious you guys offered to do this for me. Marissa says, you wanted to do some sort of event. Marissa to camera says, Caprice seems to have forgotten that she asked me to do it for her. So this is twice. She did ask. I totally believe she asked. Marissa to Caprice says, you called me after the 4th of July. You thanked me for a beautiful evening. Caprice says, oh, pregnancy brain. Marissa to camera says, oh, the pregnancy brain excuse. Well played. Marissa says, I think there's a miscommunication involved. I think there are some big egos involved. So she did ask. I knew it. So if Caroline had listened and called over Marissa when she was arguing with Caprice, then maybe that would have resolved it a little better. Maybe, if Marissa said the same thing, like, well, you did ask us to throw it for you, then it would have shed some clarity. And, whoa. So she did ask, that bitch. She lied. And then she tried to blame pregnancy brain. Oh my gosh. Meanwhile, we go back to Noelle and Caroline, who are still talking, and Noelle's saying, I'm annoyed I'm taking this for Marissa. Where is she? So then we see Noelle walk up to Marissa and Caprice. Noelle walks up and says, I'm tired of getting thrown under the road, in a really bad accent that cracked me up. She says, she's saying that I called her a bully. Caprice says, well, no, I called her a bully. Caprice to camera says, I need to defend this girl. Of course you do, Caprice. It's any excuse to fight with Caroline. Marissa says she will clear it up, and she goes to Caroline. So Marissa goes over and tries to clear it up. She's saying that it was Noelle saying that it was Caprice. Did you follow all that? So Caroline ends up apologizing to her. Caprice walks up and says, I'm leaving now. I don't want you to put Noelle in a bad situation. I'm the one who called you a bully. And Caroline says, oh my God, does she have 1 ounce of dignity left? And they go back and forth. I'm not going to go over all this, but the interesting thing here is Caprice. She looks over at Noelle and says, well, I came out here and started this for you, so ... So that was awkward as shit. So Caroline just has enough. She says, you call me a bully in my own house. If you want to call me a bully in my house, please leave. And Caprice says, I will leave. Caroline says, I'm asking you to leave my house. Which I say, damn, that's a hell of a way to end a dinner party. Woo! So good for Caroline. She asked Caprice to leave. Look at Julie here. Julie's a mess. So Caprice ends up leaving. It's a whole thing. The only other funny part to me was after she was asked to leave, the editors were sure to show us that she was hovering by the front door. She was looking to see if Noelle was going to follow her out. And I think she was pretty bummed when she didn't. Well, I spent forever on that dinner party. Let's move on. So then we see a flash of Caprice, and the reason this is interesting is because we get to see her closet. I'm always interested in everybody's closet. I don't know if this is like a secondary closet or what. I see a lot of shoes and stuff and a makeup area. Can't tell what I'm looking at. It looks like it's a Caprice show still because she's bending over and making a big deal out of everything. We see it's the next day, and Noelle calls Marissa saying she's learned her lesson and she won't be in the middle again. But the funny thing in this scene is that Marissa is so obsessed with the royal baby. This is when Prince George was about to be born, and she's watching it on her laptop to see when he's going to be born. So then we see that Juliette and her family are over at Caroline's, and the kids are going to have a sleepover. They're going to play together, and they kind of get into a discussion of how ridiculous it was with Caprice. And then we go over to Caprice's house. I love this house. She's on the phone with Annabelle, and she's saying how Caroline said, "Please leave." And she made it so dramatic and so big, and it's kind of funny to recount. The rest of the episode is kind of cut up into parts. We see where Caprice goes to America. She's about to have her babies. The first one is born via surrogate. She gets to hold them. It's so exciting. We cut over to Annabelle, who is still recovering from her injuries. Julie's there. Her hair always looks a mess, and I say that as somebody with hair who always looks a mess. I'm like, fix your hair, girl. You're on TV. But Annabelle gets to finally see the riding silks I guess she would have worn had she been able to compete. So, it's a sad moment for her. Caprice is holding her newborn, and she's having contractions with her baby that's about to be born. And then we see her in the hospital. She's talking to Ty. They're having this baby, and there he is. I believe they ended up naming their kids Jax and Jet, I believe were their names. So Marissa and her husband are hosting this bougie event at this polo match. They're explaining that this is how the summer ends at this event, which is interesting because they started off the summer with some horse riding event, polo match. And then we see Noelle and her weird lip movements again. And then we get the end credits for each lady. So for Noelle, it's the court ruled Scott Young's worth at a 40 million pounds. His ex-wife was awarded 20 million pounds. Scott proposed to Noelle with a 6-carat diamond ring, flawless. Juliette and her family are staying on in London. She has not felt the need to take additional etiquette lessons. Marissa and Matt had a second baby son. They now have an heir and a spare. Caroline has not spoken to Caprice since the dinner party. She continues to socialize with Juliette and the other Americans. Annabelle's pelvic injury is healing and she's regaining her mobility. She plans to ride and race again. That kind of blew my mind that she's already talking about that. And that's how it ends, guys. Oh, so good. I love the ladies. I love seeing all this. It was a fantastic season. Great way to go out, and I just loved it. I thought it was great. What did you guys think? Ladies London Season 1, that's a wrap. What did you think? I plan to go right into Season 2, so if you're on board, I'm on board. Let's keep going. I'm loving recapping these. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Be sure to leave me comments below. I read them all. You can follow me on Twitter @RealRecaps. And I thank you guys so much for watching. Have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.